I'm pulling my weight in gold. Proud me anxious, call me broke, but I can't live this on my own.
You will be so proud of your president.
That begins with immediately repealing and replacing the disaster known as Obamacare.
On day one, we will begin working on an impenetrable, physical, tall, powerful, beautiful southern border wall. When we win, we will suspend the Syrian refugee program.
A Trump administration will stop the horrible, horrible, horrible Trans-Pacific Partnership. We will renegotiate NAFTA, and we are going to stand up to China's currency manipulation.
We'll pass massive tax reform to create millions of new jobs and lower taxes for everyone. We're going to end the government corruption, and we're going to drain the swamp in Washington, D.C.
Welcome back to Ergo. I am the host, Brandon. In case you didn't know, Donald's 100th day of holding America hostage just passed yesterday. While many people argue that this is insignificant, I argue that it is very significant. The first 100 days of a presidency are a standard of measurement on presidential success, or failure in this case. You could essentially think of it as a job performance evaluation similar to what we all experience in the 90-day period of a new job. This standard was first established with one of the greatest presidents, a Democrat, Franklin Roosevelt, or FDR. FDR is known for many great accomplishments, such as being the longest-serving president in U.S. history, creating Social Security, and establishing a federal minimum wage. However, now we find ourselves in a new White House era with a man who claims to have had the most successful first 100 days compared to any actual legitimate president. Donald has even gone as far as stating that he is more successful than Franklin Roosevelt. But we, the people, are the true power of this government, and now we'll be the judges. Let's get started. We're going to start off this evaluation with reviewing some polling data as issued by the Public Policy on Polling, because their questions are very interesting. Let's start with Donald's image. The first question is, do you think Donald Trump is honest or dishonest? Well, 41% of Americans feel that he is honest, while a whopping 54% say that he is dishonest. The next question is, do you approve of Donald's job performance? Despite his several self-proclamations of success, only a meager 43% of Americans approve, while 50% of Americans disapprove. We must also note that Donald's job approval is the lowest in modern history for any president in their first 100 days. Seen here. The next question may throw you for a loop. The question is, which do you have a higher opinion of? United Airlines or Donald Trump? Well, it appears that more Americans would prefer getting dragged off of an airplane than put up with Donald, as 42% of Americans report that they prefer United Airlines compared to the 40% that prefer Donald Trump. Moving on to ethics and behavior, the first question asks, should Donald Trump release his tax returns? Despite his claims, the American people don't care about his taxes, this poll shows that a vast 62% of Americans want him to release his tax returns, while only 31% do not think that he should. Is the amount of time Donald spends in Mar-a-Lago appropriate or inappropriate? Like me, 49% of Americans feel that it is inappropriate, while 36% say that it is appropriate for him to visit the illegitimate White House every single weekend. Is Donald making America great again? Of course he isn't, and 55% of Americans agree that he is not, while 35% say that he is. And I'm sure that many of you know Donald's stance against the media. You know, calling reputable news outlets such as the New York Times the failing New York Times, and even calling CNN fake news. Well, it would appear that his stance against the media, like his attempts at governing, are losing. 52% of Americans feel that the New York Times are a more credible source of information compared to the 40% who feel that he is more credible. And in comparison to CNN, he loses yet again. 51% of Americans feel that CNN is more credible than he is, which clearly overshadows the mere 41% that says that he is more credible than CNN. I do want you to know that out of all of those statistics, there are just a constant 30 to 40% that are against the majority in their support for Trump. That 30 to 40% represents Donald's base of supporters, a base of supporters that he has 90% job approval with. And that's fine. Maybe the Trump train is fine with the fact that Donald has signed 27 executive orders in his first 100 days. 27 executive orders in which 2 of his illegal Muslim travel bans were struck down in multiple federal courts. Additionally, most recently, his attempt to cut federal funding to sanctuary cities, or cities that harbor immigrants, was also struck down. Moreover, maybe the Trump train is happy with the fact that after he attacked former President Barack Obama for writing too many executive orders, he has beaten both former Presidents Barack Obama and George W. Bush in the amount of executive orders he has signed in his first 100 days. I don't know, but here's the proof in the pudding. Maybe Donald's base supports him for his several failed campaign promises. Take the Affordable Care Act repeal and replace. Fail. The Republicans, whom have the majority in the House of Representatives and the Senate, couldn't even unite on this issue, an issue that they've campaigned on for nearly a decade. Or remember how he was going to label China a currency manipulator? Big fail. Now he is begging for China's help to help in North Korea. Oh, and let's not forget about that great, big, beautiful wall that Mexico's going to pay for. Super fail. Now he's going to have us pay for it, the American taxpayers, for his detested border wall. Or could the Trump train be most happy with the amount of United States allies that Donald has pissed off? While needing a nap in a tantrum, Donald yelled at the Australian Prime Minister about Syrian refugees, then hung up on him. Additionally, he has the Mexican president incensed regarding this border wall. He's even picked a beef with the Canadian president over spilt milk. Literally, spilt milk. But we won't get into that. Oh, and don't forget how he refused to shake German Chancellor Angela Merkel's hand, all because she's a woman. If you take this great list of accomplishments, and notice the sarcasm, in addition to him stirring the pot of nuclear war with North Korea, I personally say that overall, his first 100 days represents the definition of failure in its totality. Failure meaning a lack of success, the state of not functioning, a sudden cessation of power. I am offended that he would even utter the name of Franklin Roosevelt, and I revile Donald due to his actions and behavior that is now making George W. Bush look like one of the greatest presidents ever. There are certainly other factors to evaluate Donald on, but how do you rate his first 100 days? Let me know what you think. You, the people. Use the hashtag Ergo Show or mention me on Twitter, Ergo Show, to weigh in. In the meantime, let's take a quick break, and when we return, I'll give you an update on the Kremlin Klan.
In addition to seeking interviews with you, I'm seeking your input as well, America. Head on over to www.theergoshow.com and participate in the Viewer's Choice Poll, where every Sunday I will post a new poll for you, the people, to vote on what topic you would like me to cover in the next episode. Hurry though, the polls will close every Wednesday. Remember, the key is to be activated, informed, and involved.
So last week, we reported that the Senate Intelligence Committee was taking the lead on the investigation into Trump-Russia ties. Well, that has changed. The Senate Intelligence Committee operates much like the House Intelligence Committee in that the party majority gains the chairmanship and runs the committee, and the minority party gains the ranking member position. Well, the Republicans have the majority of the House of Representatives and the Senate. Therefore, Senator Richard Burr, a Republican, is the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee. And after putting on a big press conference with the Democrat ranking member, Senator Mark Warner, to grandstand or give the impression that they were going to do this investigation in a bipartisan fashion and that they would get to the bottom of it, it appears that Republican Senator Richard Burr is up to the same games that Republican House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes was up to. Senator Richard Burr is refusing to sign any letters or subpoenas to request documents from the White House. Basically, he's stalling the investigation. Moreover, it is reported that the 7 staffers Senator Burr is so proud of hiring as being dedicated to the investigation are actually only working on it in a part-time manner. Furthermore, none of the 7 staffers are lawyers, have any intelligence experience, or have any experience as being a prosecutor. Smells fishy, doesn't it? Well, if that doesn't get your attention, know this. Senator Richard Burr was a part of Donald's transition team to usher in the new administration. And now he's the chair of the committee that could and should bust Donald Trump for treason. In other news, remember this guy, Carter Page? During Donald's campaign, he was Donald's campaign advisor on foreign policy. Well, it has now been reported that the FBI had a FISA warrant on Carter Page dating back to the summer of 2016. FISA stands for Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. A FISA warrant is a warrant issued by a judge that grants the FBI permission to surveil an American citizen. You know, listen to their phone calls and watch them through their microwaves, as Kellyanne Conway suggested. Anyways, the FBI can only be granted that warrant if they can provide enough evidence to show probable cause of someone, an American citizen, acting as an agent of a foreign power. And it must include another power or government from a different country. Let's take a look at this interview.
FBI about their Russia investigation. Have you been interviewed by them or questioned by them in any way?
You know, I tried asking Lisa Monaco at a breakfast meeting in early January about the ongoing allegations about FISA warrants, which had been coming out about me going back to October. And she avoided the question completely, and she also made the point that we don't talk about any ongoing investigations. And again, I've always respected confidentiality. I have nothing to say about any ongoing investigations that may or may not be going on.
You're not going to comment? Is that what you're saying?
I have no comment, no.
Well, I mean, I prepared for this interview and I read, a year's worth of stuff about you. And until February, you would say repeatedly, the FBI had not contacted you. You stopped saying that in March. Is it fair to assume from that you have now talked to the FBI and you are just declining to comment because now the facts have changed?
Well, I have been very forthcoming that I want to get as much information out there as possible. And that has stood from the very beginning and in several documents which I've sent to both the House and Senate committees. And I really look forward to having those discussions and really supporting this ongoing process.
So if you're wondering why Carter Page's FISA warrant was granted to the FBI, it was because he was recruited by 2 Russia spies and supposedly he exchanged pertinent United States information with them. It should also be noted that these Russian spies that recruited Carter Page called him an idiot. But the fact that they mentioned his name overall is what led Carter Page to being surveilled by the FBI. Lastly, I'm sure you remember Mr. Lock Her Up himself, Michael Flynn. The her being Hillary Clinton and the locking her up being the chant that he took the lead on at a Trump rally. Well, he recently had his attorney publicly request immunity in exchange for his testimony on the Trump-Russia investigation. In other words, he requested that he not be prosecuted for anything that he would report in testimony. And as he once said himself, why request immunity if you've done nothing wrong? He asked for immunity for a reason, because most recently the House of Representatives Oversight Committee, which is a committee responsible for the supervision of many government agencies and officials, held a press conference where they revealed that Michael Flynn not only received money for attending a dinner with Russian President Vladimir Putin, but that he failed to report receiving that money, nor did he ask permission to take it. And yes, he does have to request that permission, due to the emoluments clause that is within our Constitution. The emoluments clause states, no title of nobility shall be granted by the United States, and no person holding any office of profit or trust under them shall, without the consent of the Congress, except of any present emolument, office, or title of any kind whatever from any king, prince, or foreign state. In other words, no federal official can accept gifts or money from a different country's government. The House Oversight Committee Chair, a Republican, Jason Chaffetz, and Ranking Member, Democrat Elijah Cummings, had a press conference to report this finding, and report also that the White House is refusing to submit the additional requested documents related to this matter. Let's take a look at some of their press conference now.
Do you believe that Michael Flynn broke the law from either not disclosing these payments on his security clearance, or not getting permission for getting these foreign payments?
Personally, I see no information or no data to support the notion that General Flynn complied with the law, and that is he was supposed to seek permission and receive permission from both the Secretary of State and the Secretary of the Army prior to traveling to Russia to not only accept that payment, but to engage in that activity. I see no evidence that he actually did that.
And you think, Congressman, that this could be punishable for up to 5 years in prison, you said?
I think it definitely, that's why I cited the code. But that's going to be left up to others to decide. We just wanted to know what his exposure is, but clearly, I agree with the chairman. I mean, he was supposed to get permission, and he was supposed to report, and he didn't.
Whether you are on the Trump train or are like me, fighting back against the White House squatter known as Donald Trump, you have to have the sense that something is wrong here. And to call yourself an American, you have to take issue with this. All signs, in my opinion, of collusion are clear. This is an issue that clearly mandates unity in this country, Republicans and Democrats. We all have to take our country back.
Ergo wants to be the platform for you to express your political thoughts. Please feel free to join the discussion via phone, video, or in person. To set up an interview, contact The Ergo Show at Outlook.com.
At this time, I'd like to do a quick rundown of some current events going on throughout the country. To start off, on a positive note, New York became the first state to offer tuition-free higher education at public colleges and universities. This is finally a victory for the middle and lower classes, as this opportunity is only available to those students whose parents or themselves only make less than $100,000 per year. It's even more encouraging to note that the state of Rhode Island is considering passing similar legislation to this. Now, in a race to yesterday, the end of Donald's failed first 100 days, the Republican, or GOP Congress, and Donald decided that they would bring two things to the forefront amidst the government shutdown. One, they decided to start pushing a second attempt to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act. And two, they decided to introduce Donald Trump's tax reforms that he says will be the biggest tax cuts and reform ever. Yeah, right. I want to inform those that don't know and remind those that do of the nature and values of the Republican Party. Initially, they attempted to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act with the American Health Care Act, an immoral and despicable bill written by the House of Representatives Speaker Paul Ryan. Ryan's American Health Care Act would have cut 24 million people from health insurance, capped and done away with Medicaid, and would have given insurance companies a near $1 trillion, with a T, trillion-dollar tax break. The only reason this bill did not pass was because of a group of people within the Republican Party called the Freedom Caucus. Without the Freedom Caucus to support this deplorable excuse for legislation, the Republicans did not have enough votes to pass it and therefore gave up. The Freedom Caucus only refused to support this bill for one simple fact, and that is that it was not conservative enough. Vis-a-vis, it wasn't cruel enough to the American people. So now the Republicans have regrouped and state that they have amended that same bill to now do away with mandates that insurance companies cannot charge people more money for pre-existing conditions. And get this, the only people's insurances that will be changed by this law are the citizens. That's right, the Republicans wrote in an amendment that their insurances would not be touched. Is that even legal? This is the party that is currently running our Congress and the White House, America. In addition to this depraved health care possibility, Donald has issued his one-page plan for how he is going to reform taxes. Basically, he's proposing to cut taxes from 35% to 15% for corporate taxes and do away with the alternative minimum tax. I'm not a financial expert, so I will not belabor this issue, but basically the 1% rich people in this country will get richer as their tax cuts will be significantly higher than those in the middle and lower class. When interviewed about this tax proposal, Donald gave the same broken record Republican response of how his tax reform will cause corporations to hire more people and create more jobs since they'll have more money to do it. You really cannot make this stuff up. Are we in the Twilight Zone or the X-Files? Let's take a break, and then after this, I'll conclude. We're often overstimulated with all the things that life offers. If one were to consider school, work, bills, social life, sex life, social media, reality TV, entertainment drama, and forming judgments of other people's actions, one would reason that we as a society are more distracted than we are focused. We rush to buy the new iPhone, and even I am guilty of rushing to buy the latest pair of Jordan tennis shoes. But if you take into consideration that we, the average, everyday people, are so easily distracted by all of our wants, needs, and responsibilities, wouldn't it be incredibly easy to distract an entire nation from a government level? Let's say distract the nation, and maybe even the entire world, from what is potentially the biggest scandal in United States history? And if you are the one behind the biggest scandal, wouldn't you want to throw the stone and hide your hand? Now take that metaphor and apply it to the Trump-Russia scandal. If you yourself were under one of the biggest investigations of all time, wouldn't you want to distract those that are watching you? With that said, consider Donald Trump's Syria strikes after he promised to not interfere in the Middle East except for matters pertaining to ISIS. These attacks are nothing more than political theater. Although Donald said that he was moved by the images of dead children, I, for one, would never give him that much credit, especially when you consider that military strikes have historically been done as the go-to strategy for presidents that have terrible job approval ratings. So wouldn't a strike be the perfect distraction from Donald's FBI investigation and a means to improve his then 34% approval rating? To go a step further, consider North Korea. While their actions do warrant aggressive response, I find it ironic that they too have started to become defiant just as the Trump-Russia investigation is getting hotter. Drip, drip, drip. That is the rate at which we are receiving information on this investigation. Donald's stance and perceived war on the media and the press isn't for attention. Trust me, it's a strategy. Every dictator from Hussein to Hitler began their rise to power by breaking the public's trust of the media so that they could brainwash the public with what they wanted them to know as the truth. Donald is running amok in the most prestigious office of this great country and is making us all a mockery amongst other nations. He has shown that he will spare no one in his quest for a good image and perception that he is always right. Don't you see the signs, America? It's a sunny day. Wake up, be activated, be informed, be involved. And this is where I will conclude this week's episode of Ergo, before you, the people.
I'm pulling my weight.